David here with Figboot on Pens, back again with another ink review. Today I have for you a limited edition ink set from Papier Plume that pays tribute to a traditional summertime New Orleans treat, the Snowball. Now, I will say that while I was doing my research into this review, I did learn that there is a difference between a snow cone and a snowball, and I'll explain the difference here in a little bit. Papier Plume does a really great job of coming out with some interesting themed inks, but this is the first time that I can recall in the last few years them coming out with an entire set. Thanks go out to the good folks at Papier Plume for providing the inks you will see today for review. Okay, in order to get a closer look at these flavorful inks, please join me over here at camera 2. Here we go with a look at the Papier Plume Sno-Ball Party. It comes in this cute little box. You take this off, and inside we have a little menu here that shows you the different flavors. There is plum, tutti frutti, spearmint, tiger's blood, and bubblegum. And then this is what the inks look like. Actually, it's kind of cute as well because they include a little napkin as well as a straw and a spoon, things that you would need for your own snow cone. Now, again, these are not edible flavors. These are just colors. They are not something that you want to add to your own snow cones. These are nice 12 milliliter bottles and have that snowball there on the front. In regard to the colors, this is the plum, and then we have the tutti frutti, then there is the spearmint, and the tiger's blood, and then finally the bubblegum, which doesn't quite want to fit in there. There's the bubblegum. I will say that my ink samples were slightly lighter than others that I have seen. Here's a look from the company website. You can see that they show a little bit darker. Now I did for the bubblegum, now when I'm doing this sample, I'm just using a Q-tip. I did a more darker smear on this portion, so with a heavier application it does come across a little bit darker, but with the Q-tip application it was fairly consistent between the samples that I have. This is what the inks look like on some 52-gram Tomoe River paper. We have the plum, and you can see that with heavier applications, there is a little bit of sheening that you can get. I'll try to see that in the reflection. And then there is the tutti frutti, and this is the spearmint, and the tiger's blood, and then finally the bubblegum. And you can see that with this particular paper, you do get a fair amount of some sheening and some shading to that. In regard to an ink to focus on for this review, it was tough to decide, but I decided to go with the one that I like the flavor of best, which is tiger's blood. In regard to the header here, as well as the passes, I'm using this 3.8 millimeter Pilot Parallel, which is nice to use for those kind of things. I do find that the ghosting and bleed is low on these pens, as well as the shade and sheed to be medium, depending on the application. In regard to the pens that we're using today, I have a couple of things. First up is a brand new pen from Monteverde in their Trees of the World series, which is the Giant Sequoia. It has a nice color to it, and you can see that wood is integrated into the cap as well. So here we have the Monteverde. And this is the Grand Sequoia. You know, as I was writing that, I realized I didn't show the color comparisons. This is the tiger's blood, and then this is what it looks like in regard to Private Reserve Burgundy Mist. And here it is with Diamine Communication Breakdown. There is Private Reserve Vampire Red, and then Diamine Ox Blood. You can see oxes have a little bit darker blood than tigers. Then there is Mont Blanc's Hitchcock Red, which is a little bit on the browner side. And then here it is with Leonardo Red Passion. Okay, in regard to a second pen, we have something very special from Papier Plume, which is actually still available on their site. It's a collaboration with the Herbert Pen Company, and it is the Wetland Cypress. It's made of cypress wood and then has this incredible clip. This is one of my favorite clips I've ever seen on a pen. It's just very unique and different and comes from an artisan who deals in jewelry as well as mat making. So this is something that is still available. I do have a review of this on my channel, so if you want to check this out, I highly recommend it. And this is we'll just call it the Wetland Cypress. Oh, something else I forgot. I'm forgetful today. The Grand Sequoia was a fine, and this Wetland Cypress is a medium. And then for the final pen, we have a pen that I recently reviewed from Narwhal, and this is in their Nautilus series, and this is the Grand Rhapsody. So we have the Narwhal. And we use the old spelling since this is one of their older pens, and this is the Grand Rhapsody. And this is the 1.1 stub. Okay, in regard to a writing sample, I thought that I would talk a little bit about snow cones and snowballs. First of all, yes, I realized I spelled sequoia wrong there with a Y and didn't feel like going back and fixing it. So in regard to a writing sample, let's first start off with this giant sequoia. I said that in 1919, Samuel Burt invented a snow cone machine and sold snow cones at the State Fair of Texas. It wasn't until actually 1934 the first ice block shaver was invented in New Orleans. Next up, we have the Wetland Cypress. Okay, something that I learned here in the differentiation between the two is that a snow cone is made with crunchy ice and a snowball is used creating a fine powdery snow. So they're slightly different. And then finally, with the Narwhal Grand Rhapsody, there's not two L's in that. I said that it wasn't until the Great Depression and World War II that snow cones and snowballs became really popular across the nation as an inexpensive treat. Okay, I do find the flow on this ink to be medium. The drying time was decent. Basically, between a fine and a medium nib, it was between 15 and 30 seconds. In regard to a waterproof test, this ink doesn't market itself as being waterproof, but let's go ahead and put some water on there and let it sit for a second as we take a look at some chromatography. I thought it would be neat to do chromatography on all 5 of these inks, and I always liked seeing how these end up separating. These are what the chromatography strips ended up looking like. Let's see if we can figure out which one was which. This was the spearmint, which is the blue and yellow, which make green. This one here was the Tutti Frutti, which is pretty much pink. This one here, I believe, is the tiger's blood, which is basically the red and a little bit of yellow there. This is the bubble gum. And then this one here is the plum, which is basically blue and red. Let's go ahead and wipe this off. Like I said, it doesn't contest to be waterproof, but it did hold up pretty well under the water there. I don't find that it did too bad in that test. I said Papier Plume Sno-Ball Party has a variety of colorful choices that will brighten your writing with well-behaving inks. So there we have the Papier Plume Sno-Ball Party. I think it's an interesting set of inks. It sells for $35, and I'll put a link to it in the notes below. I think that it's a fun little ink set with some nice colors as well. Okay, until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.